afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Greetings, salutations, and 10,000 blessings on your head. My name is Reverend Phoenix Coffin Williams. I am the first priest of the Corellian tradition. And if you are here with me right now, you are here for another segment, another episode of Fridays with Phoenix. Today, we are going to continue our conversation. We're going to continue our discussion about the Kemetic divinities, the ancient Egyptian divinities. And if you've been following over the past couple of episodes, then you know that for the last couple of weeks, I've been doing a demonstration of ritual with circle casting, quarter calling, invocation of divinities, doing a little bit of working and then taking down the space. And then before that, I was doing some work with the identities of certain individual divinities. So I did talk about Atum and Heru or Hathor, talking about Jehuti, or Tot or Thoth. I spoke about Anubis. Today, though, I'm going to return to the story time, and I'm going to talk about the role of Nebthet or Nebthets in our personalities. In order to do that, though, I do have to talk about the larger mythology in which he plays the big role, or a greater role. First thing is first. Nebthet, who is the one that we are talking about mostly today, has a twin sister named Aset. These twin sisters have two brothers, Asar and Sutekh. Nebthet is married to Sutekh, and Aset is married to Asar. That's important. Even though all four of these divinities are siblings, Aset and Asar are the rulers. Asar is the king, and Aset is his wife, the queen. Sutekh is the lord of the desert, and Nebthet is the fashioner of bodies, or the lady of the house. In the Asarian mythology, where all of these characters come together, we start off knowing that Asar is the king of all of Kemet, all of Egypt, and things are pretty prosperous, being linked to vegetation, being linked to farming skills and helping green things grow. Under the rulership of Asar, under the leadership of Asar, Kemet or Egypt or what have you, doing phenomenally well. Also, political conquests are going well, and so on and so forth. One night, Asar comes home from a night of celebrating a recent victory or a campaign or what have you, whatever it is that kings do. Comes home, celebrating, and once the partying is said and done, once the party is over, Asar goes home and is still in a great mood. And as anyone who has imbibed alcohol or participated in debauchery knows, before the whiskey phallus sets in, there is a period of arousal or agitation or in general horniness that does befall phallic having individuals. And so Asar goes home and wants to do it, And it just so happens that his wife's twin sister is in the house. So, mistaking this woman for his twin sister, a sexual union occurs. There are some variations of the tale in which Aset and Nebthet did this on purpose. They switched on purpose. There are some stories that don't address whether or not there was any kind of plot or intentions behind this switch. Sometimes I've heard it read as it was an honest mistake. But my critical thinking skills really lead me to, sure, it was an honest mistake on one of their parts, but the other one knew that Asar wasn't her husband. But either way, Asar and Nebthet have a union, and Nebthet ends up getting pregnant by this union and gets pregnant with the god Anpu, also known as Anubis. But that part is not for today. Shortly after the pregnancy and the giving birth of Anpu, there's another party, everyone is gathered and cheering, having a good time. Asar and his people are having a good time. Aset and her people are cheering, having a good time. Maybe even Jehudi is there, who knows? But it's a grand time. And Sutekh comes in with this very pretty coffin or a box or what have you. And, it's decked out, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful. And Sutekh says, whoever can fit into this chest perfectly gets to go home with it. It's theirs. So person after person after person, attendee after attendee after attendee, they try out in this chest. Some of them are much too big, some of them are much too small. All of them have their hopes dashed because in reality, this chest, this box, was made specifically for the measurements of Asar. So Asar gets in, tries it out, realizes he fits perfectly, and as he is coming to terms with the fact that he won this beautifully adorned chest, Sutekh slams it closed. He and his followers immediately screw it shut. They take it away before anyone could stop them, send it down out into sea. Asar dies, probably due to suffocation, maybe some claustrophobic panic attack, can't breathe. Either way, dude is done for. The box, the chest floats and finds its way onto the banks of Asarian area, like Syria, and a cedar tree grows around the box. Aset, Nebthet, and Anpu all go out on a search to try to find this box. And eventually they do find it. And not before, however, Sutekh also gets to where the box is landed and opens it up, sees Asar's body there, cuts it up into many, many pieces, and has his followers scatter them in every which direction. So in phase 2 of this plan, Aset, Nebthet, and Anpu go out and search for the scattered bits of their god's body, Asar's body. And they find every piece except for the phallus, which was eaten by a fish. So they reassemble the body using special muds and special herbs and waters and prayers and spells. And the process of mummification is created by Anpu at first specifically for Asar's condition. So they restore his body, they create a makeshift penis for him, and they bring him back to life just long enough for him to conceive a legitimate heir with his wife, Aset. because the child with Nebthet, while is technically the son of Asar, it's not legitimate. It's not with his wife. So that happens. Aset conceives an heir, and Asar tells everyone, all right, I gotta go back to the place where I came from. Like, this world of living is not for me anymore, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So that's the story. And, just to highlight for a second, in this story, Nebthet, twin sister of Aset, who is the queen of heaven. Nebthet is the lady of the house. She is very much the principle of all things physical. She is also known as the fashioner of bodies, which means it is through her energy, her power, her principle that we all and everything physical takes its form or takes its shape. So the reason why I have this body, Nebthet. The reason why, a house looks like a house, Nebthet. The reason why trees look like trees, Nebthet. Everything that's physical and tangible is related to Nebthet. And in the story where Asar and Nebthet have a sexual union, it's not really meant to be taken literal in that extent. It really does represent what is a possible consequence if you indulge too much or if you indulge ignorantly in the illusions that the physical world have to offer. So think about that for a second. He ignorantly went home after a night of partying and drinking. His inhibitions were low. He was in a great mood, had the urge or the impulse to have some sexy time, did it with his wife's twin sister, which resulted in an illegitimate pregnancy, potentially his brother finding out, because his brother is the one who's married to Nebthet. Brother finds out, not only is my brother the king, not only does my brother have the wife who's the queen of heaven, but now this dude has also had my wife. And if you remember back to what I said before, Sutekh represents all ego. He's the lord of the desert and the storms. He represents all ego. And his agitation is quite powerful. And so in this line of thinking, we can recognize that indulging in the physical, too much in the physical, indulging ignorantly in the physical world is ultimately the thing that leads to death. It's ultimately the thing that led to Asar being trapped inside this coffin. It's led him to being pushed out to sea, his body chopped up into multiple pieces, dead as a doornail. And so the Asarian mythology functions as a warning to us about how to regard the physical world. In the physical world, there are things that might look like enlightenment, they might look like pleasure, they might look like peace, but ultimately what they lead us toward is our own downfall, our own demise, our own physical death, and depending on the degree that we participate in these physical things, it could also lead to a type of spiritual death. It's easy to think about drugs and food and sex in this regard. Too much sex, too much food, too much drugs leads to some disordered behavior, leads to a movement away from enlightenment, a movement away from God, a movement away from righteousness. But it's not just food, drugs, sex. Anything that we start to prefer, anything that we start to lust after in our minds, in our bodies, in our hearts, anything that we start to give our attention to, naturally diminishes the attention that we have towards God, towards enlightenment, towards serving our appropriate purposes. And so the story of Asar and the relationship to Nebthet is a cautionary tale or a warning against indulging in the things of the physical senses ignorantly. It is not a call to stop liking these things. It's not a call to stop participating in these things, but it is a call to reorganize our priorities. It is a call to reorganize what we prefer, or how we participate in our preferences. It is a call to remind us to keep our minds on the righteous, to keep our minds on enlightenment, to keep our minds on attaining that stillness within, as opposed to indulging in the fantasies and the delusions without. As Corellians, we talk about the veil being the thing that most successfully obscures our memory of our soul's truest potential. And in this kind of mythology, we would say that, like using Asar, Nebthet, Sutekh, Heru, like the myth that I just spoke about, we would say that one, a veil being a very thin piece of fabric that you can see through, and you can, see how to manage it and all of that. We would say that Nebthet, the fashioner of bodies, the lady of the house, is one of the opportunities for us to reject the veil. One of the challenges to call us to see life for what it is, or to see our situations for what they are. And any situation where we are evaluating preferences, or likes or desires over priorities, over values, over the things that we want to stand for, anytime that we're doing that, we are in the position to potentially allow the veil to continue to obscure our vision or any of our other, senses. In this particular philosophy, Kemetic philosophy, everything is a bunch of atoms that are organized or reorganized in a different way. All of the food atoms is protein organized in a different way. Is chlorophyll or chloroplast reorganized in a different way. But all of like the food, vegetables, all made up of the same, thing. They might have some, differences, subtle differences, but at the end of the day, even those subtle differences are composed up of atoms, of protons, neutrons, electrons, and any of the other things that compose an atom. And so these atoms go on to build molecules. These molecules go on to build other forms. And so at the end of the day, all of them, everything is an atom. And it is a delusion, according to Kemetic philosophy, it is a delusion to prefer any kind of atom over the other. And we apply that as above, so below. As above, it's pretty delusional to prefer one planet that is not our home planet over another. It's, a little bit delusional to be like, oh, like I love me a nice Mercury over Venus, especially without having had an experience with either. But so below, it's also a little bit delusional to be like, I prefer broccoli to asparagus. They composed of the same atoms. At the end of the day, they're the same atoms. And so, and it's the same thing when you're like, what, I prefer this person over that person. It's delusional, it's completely egoic, because all of us people are composed of the same thing. And spiritually speaking, we at our core are composed of the same divinity. So whenever you discuss in preferences, whenever you are discussing likes or dislikes or wants or what have you, you are already interacting with the illusion that is brought forth by the veil. I do offer some water, some lights, and some incense to the divinities of the Necharu. I do thank them for their inspiration and their guidance in this particular message today. I hope that anyone who comes across this message or who happens to be watching becomes immensely successful in all of your dealings with the veil or with Nebthet or with the illusions and the offerings of the physical world. Again, my name is Reverend Phoenix Coffin Williams, and I will be back next Friday with some more discussion about Kemetic philosophy, maybe even talk a little bit more about approaches to Kemetic psychology and behavior in that direction. But of course, 10,000 blessings on all of your heads, and I love you lots, and come back next week, okay? Blessed be.